really didn't know much about performing arts presenting in Spain before I came here. So over my time here, it was a really interesting process to realize, to learn more about the system and some of the realities that people face. I'm really impressed with the commitment of the individual people to the work that they're doing. They obviously feel very strongly about their work. They put a lot of work into it, a lot of passion into it. They have very strong opinions about what they should be doing. They have their frustrations. They're parts of their jobs that I think that they find very frustrating. But I think that's true for all of us. We all find parts of it very frustrating. I'm really impressed with the scope of artists that they present. It's a very wide range of artists in all different genres. And most of the people that I met seem to have been in their positions for some time, and so they're very capable. They know very well what they're doing, and they know how to do it. They understand their communities and what's important to them, and they know about the art. So it was very it was wonderful to meet people who felt that passionately about their work. Well, I think, as many people indicated, there's something of a transition happening, especially in regards to funding. And it's happening in different ways and in different places, so it's not all the same all over, which I think it makes it a little bit difficult for people to know quite what to do. Some public theaters will seem destined to remain public theaters, fully supported by public funding. Some people are being encouraged to raise private money. Some people would like to, but they can't. So I think the issue of funding, and particularly in times of difficult economic times when the money is reducing, trying to find alternative ways of getting the money to do what it is that you want to do and need to do is a really challenging part of the job. Although, to be honest, that's the challenge for us in the United States as well. But I think what's particularly different here is that people are having to move from one way of funding into another way of funding, and I think that's a hard shift to make. It's an interestingly complex question because it's very overt here, as I've learned. A politician will very clearly come in and say, no, you can't do that, artist. No, you can't. That can't happen. And although we don't have that sort of direct interference in the United States, we have what I would call more indirect interference. Like, well, it's up to you. If you want to do that, you can, but there's an unstated sort of consequence to that. And I think part of that comes from our failure to engage politicians and decision makers in the value of what it is that we do. And so I think in terms of the politicians themselves, I would say go into the theater, meet the people who are there, see what their response is and how they're being affected by the work of the theater, and then allow that to be a more important part of your point of view as a politician, that you support the work of the theater and that you encourage people to support the theater because they're there and they're attending and it's important to them. You're a politician, it's important to you that your people are happy. This is a place where they're happy. I think there are many ways that we could build those bridges if we're able to get past just sort of yelling at each other. There's a lot of that going on. This is something that I talk about a lot in all of the workshops that I do, because we live in such a complicated and, one might say, unhappy world. And we are trying to solve our problems through things like law, government, military. We feel like if we apply force or if we write edicts and if we make laws, then people will change their behavior. And people might change their behavior because they're forced to change their behavior. You'll go to jail if you do this. But in the end, you don't really get to the heart of what people really care about and what their real values are and what's really important to them. And that's the only art can do that. Art is the only thing we have that can do that. So it's a very long-term process. You have to be patient because people don't change their minds overnight and they don't change their hearts overnight. But if through a real robust participation of the arts in your world, in your community, you begin to be more human. And as we become more human, we become more caring for each other, and we become more connected to each other. And I think in that way we can really change the world by changing the hearts and minds of people through art. And only art can do that. Maybe religion, but art for sure. I sort of have two answers to that question. I think maybe 10 years ago, we all thought that everyone was going to have to move towards the U.S. model. The dominance of U.S. global capitalism was so strong that it seemed inevitable. And so, why fight it? This is the way the world is going. We're all going to have to do that. But I think actually in the last few years, particularly since the economic recession, people worldwide have started to question the supremacy of global capitalism. And the American model is based on the idea of global capitalism and entrepreneurship. So I think people are starting to question that. And actually what I think is that what we would all be looking for is something kind of in between the American model and the Spanish model. I think full government support has lots of problems, and a lot of people indicated that: interfering politicians, censorship, a sense of I can only do with the money I'm given, and if they take away the money, then I have to do less, and I have no alternative. In the American model, you're given opportunity. Say, well, we're going to take away money, but there's this opportunity for you to do more this way. You could get money this way so that you could do more of what you want to do. But we don't have any stability. We're like tightrope walkers without a net. So if anything goes wrong, it can all collapse. So some sort of foundation of stability that's provided by the government, which is, as I learned from meeting with the presenters here, which people feel is very much the responsibility of government.
Yeah.
It's the responsibility of government to take care of its citizens. I don't think that's an idea that we want to see go away. I think in the United States we're coming out of an era saying that the government has no responsibility other than to go to war. But that's pretty much it. And we're moving, I think gradually we're moving into an era of saying, no, government has a responsibility to its citizens, to their health and to their welfare. And art is part of their welfare, so there needs to be government support for the arts because that's what a healthy community needs. But at the same time, I don't want to be just government supported. So if we could hit someplace in the middle, that would be great. I've been a presenter for more than 30 years, and it's not something that I ever thought I would do. But once I got into it and realized how important the role is and what it's really about, I felt like I had found where I belonged. The presenter works in between the artists who create the work and the community who receives the work. And as the presenter, your role is to put those two things together and do everything you can to ensure that when they come together, something really wonderful happens. And so that's a very much more complicated task than people think. When you say it's connecting art and audience, they think, well, hire the artist, get the theater, put the show on. What more? How hard could that be? But it's much more challenging than that if what you want to do is create this extraordinary experience for people in the community so that when they engage with the art, they really do have those experiences of feeling transformed and feeling like their hearts have been changed, and that they have some kind of extraordinary life experience that they will remember forever. And when you can make that happen, when you know that you're the one that made that happen, you're responsible for bringing that artist and that particular audience together at that moment, and you did that, that's pretty amazing. That's a pretty wonderful word. First of all, I'm very grateful that you received my books, my first book, and that many people were able to purchase them, and I'm really grateful for that. And I wrote that book in 2006, I think, or something like that. And I'm working on a revision / expansion of that, because primarily because so much has changed in the world. The book is a theory. So as a theory, it shouldn't actually change very much, right? A theory presumes that this is the way things work, and external environments may change, but this is the way things work. So much of the book will remain the same. But much of it will change primarily in my sort of enhanced understanding of the external environment. And a lot of the stuff that I talked about in this workshop around resilience, the resilience theory the presentation that I did on that is just the beginning of something that I want to write out about how organizations can think of themselves as a resilient organization rather than a fixed one. So that's one piece that's changing. Another piece that's changing is the curatorial approach. In the first edition, I was just really making this up as I went along, and so it was very theoretical, but it was also very sort of untested. And in the sort of 10 years since then, I've had the opportunity to test and refine some of those ideas. So I'd like to go back and take a second look at those and see how I might change those and refine so that I can give presenters a more specific curatorial approach, an idea of a more specific curatorial approach that they might find more helpful than some of the sort of, well, you could try this, you could try that, that's in the first book. And finally, I'm really delving more deeply into the idea of the external environment and all the work we did in the workshop about environmental scanning, and a deeper look at trying to understand what's happening in the external world and how that affects what it is that we're doing. I do think as presenters, especially community-based presenters, which all of us are, we get really focused on our community and the issues in our community and what's happening in the people that live around us. And I'm wanting us to take a more global perspective because the work that we do does have a more far-reaching effect than that. So I want to look at that in this book as well. So those are kind of the three areas that I'm looking to sort of revise and enhance. The sort of first part about the theory won't change too much, but the rest of it I hope will.